Hello. Okay, so my name is Mr. Palacios, and I'm going to be teaching your statistics class this quarter. What you guys need to know about this statistics class, it's different from previous classes because this is a 5-week statistics course with work every single day. So because we only have 5 weeks instead of 10 weeks, right? This quarter is going to go by really, really fast. But good news, if you manage to make it to the end of the 5 weeks and you turn in most of your work, you can walk away with 5 statistics credits, which is pretty good. So here is what to expect in terms of the work breakdown and what your responsibilities are. All right. So every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, expect some kind of work. I have it laid out here. And keep in mind, all this is happening through Google Classroom. Okay. So, everything is in Google Classroom. Everything will be posted there daily. If I am in your site, and by your site is, I mean, like if I'm in your school site, if I'm in South LA, for example, I will be personally there for some time of the day. I can help you with whatever you need. If you are in other sites like Long Beach or in Pico, you're going to have access to a video that I make, which is essentially my lecture that's recorded, which is what you're watching right now. Um, and of course, I will be available over Zoom if the teacher in your current school is unable to help you with the work after you guys have been trying to work it out, right? So for Monday, the routine is there will be a daily warm up. There'll be a warm up every single day on Google Classroom posted on there that is due that day. All warm ups are due the day that they're posted. So, for example, uh, tomorrow, I mean Monday, for the warm up that'll be posted will be due at the end of that at the end of Monday at 11:59. However, your responsibility as well, like say you're on site, say you're in school, what do? You log into Google Classroom, attempt to do a warm up. You don't know how to do the warm up. Go directly to the video that will also be up by that time. Watch the video, take notes, right? So we're on the video/lecture notes, right? Take notes, watch the entire video, do all your notes, right? Have them written down physically somewhere, right? And then what I want you to do with that is once you physically written down with your own handwriting, you're going to take a picture of those notes and you're going to upload them into Google Classroom. There will be a teacher somewhere available to help you out with that. And if you're in the site where I'm currently going to be at, I personally will help you upload those lecture notes so that I can grade them on Google Classroom. The reason why we're doing everything on Google Classroom is in case we are forced to go fully online, which we don't, foresee. But if, the quarantine comes back in full effect and we have to go all online again, it'll be a seamless transition and everything will already be on Google Classroom. So, it's we're trying to be proactive and make sure that you don't lose any progress in case the worst happens. With that in mind, the video and lecture will be on Monday. You'll take notes and you'll upload those notes on by the end of Monday. Technically, the lecture notes are due by the end of the week. You'll still get full credit. However, the lecture is the lesson, and you won't be able to do any of the practice problems unless you watch it. So the sooner you watch that and go through it and understand the problems that you're going to be doing, the better the rest of the week will go. Right? Say you miss Monday, um, and you're not there, but you have access to the video. Watch it at home. Take notes at some point. Say you were unable to do any of that, and then you show up on Tuesday. Well, the first thing you're going to do is watch the video, but you're behind already. Right? So we don't have a lot of time, so you're going to just have to keep up with all the work that happens. Tuesday, warm up plus, and then after that, after your warm up is done, which will be based off of something in the video, you're going to have the practice for concept one due at the end of the week. For statistics this week in particular, what you're going to be expected for concept one is measures of center and spread, which is mean, median, mode, range, quartiles and interquartile range, right? Wednesday would be practice for concept two, which is due at the end of the week. Uh, Concept two for this week would be more of like the how to find the average if you have an even number of numbers in a data set instead of an odd number of numbers. And I'll go into that later on this video. Thursday, right, you're going to have another warm up that's due on that day. And then you'll be given a third piece of practice, an advanced practice for concepts due at the end of the week. These are what we consider word problems, right? So these are word problems, and I'll give you an example of what kind of word problems uh, we're trying to do, okay? Okay, with that in mind, uh, all work must be done on a separate piece of paper and digitized and then upload to Google Classroom. Um, Late work. Let's say you missed Monday for whatever reason, right? And you're wondering, oh, I forgot to do the warm up, and I need. Okay, is it still too late to do it? Can I do it on Tuesday? Well, yes, you can, but keep in mind that it for the warm ups, every day that it's late, you lose a point, and they're not going to be worth that many points, which means that after a while, due to the late penalty, you won't even get any points doing it, which means it's you're encouraged to do it that day, even if you don't come to school that day. You should, if you have access to internet somewhere from your phone, anywhere, you should be able to do that. Or if there are difficulties, you need to email me. I'll provide my email at the end of this video. Right. Uh, and that's pretty much the way that it's gonna go. As far as quizzes are concerned, you might have a quiz as a form of assessment in the middle, and then exit a final project at the end of the 5 weeks, perhaps. But that is the general outline for what is expected and what you should be doing every single day. If you notice, this doesn't seem like a lot, but if you miss 2 or 3 days of the week, all this work is going to pile up on you, and that's going to be pretty difficult for you to catch up. To just try to do your best to be consistent. Come every day to school, or at least work on everything every day from school, so that way it doesn't feel like it's too crazy by the end of the week. Okay. All right, so now let's move on with the actual course, right? So here, what we're doing, right? Week 1, statistics, mean, median, mode, range, quartiles, and interquartile range. What I have here is a set of definitions that I want you guys to copy down. Go ahead and pause the video at this point and get all these definitions down. Write them all down, because they're all these are essentially these are essentially these are essentially the things that you're going to have to do, right? These are directions for how to find each and every one of these things. Don't worry, you're going to see examples on how to do each and one of those things. I just want you to have the definitions on them, because some of the warm-up questions can be like, hey, what is the definition of mean or range or quartile? And you're like, well, I don't know. Where can I find that information? It was in the video, right? Like it was in this particular part. So pause it, copy it down in your notes, because again, this is when your notes start. Your notes should start with today's date, which if you're watching this on Monday, it should be 7/6/2020, and we'll move on from there. So go ahead and pause it if you need. I'm going to move on. Okay, so here we have the examples of how to find each and every one of these. Okay, so right here, it's very basic. It's just find the mean, median, mode, range, quartiles 1, 2, and 3, and interquartile range, right? So if we look at the definition for the mean, pretty much what it's saying, it's the average. Like if I have a data set, and by the way, the data set I'm referring to here, let me see, oops, is this data set right here. I have them in parentheses. The data set involves numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So if I want to find out the mean of this data set, I have to do a fraction. So I over here where it says mean, right? That's where we are. Mean, we have a fraction. On the top, the numerator of the fraction, it says add all the numbers in the data set. I know my writing is terrible, but just bear with me here. I'm going to read out aloud what it should say so you know what that is. The denominator of that fraction is number of numbers in the data set. So what does that mean? Well, I translated this into this one right here, right? So we're going to add all the numbers in the data set in the numerator, which means you see all the numbers in the data set, I put them over here and I just added them all together. 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. All that, whatever number that is, I'm going to end up dividing by the number of numbers that are in the data set. So starting with 0, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. There is a total of 7 numbers because we are counting 0. So there's a total of 7 numbers in that data set, which means that once we add everything up, we're going to divide it by 7, right? In this case, when we add up all the numbers, we end up getting 21, right? So if we end up getting 21 divided by 7, that ends up being 3, which means that at the end, our mean of this data set is 3. Now, this mean in particular was very easy because the numbers were very easy. What you might experience is you might have to find the mean of several prices, something like 1375 plus 1475 and plus 1521 or something, right? And you would still do the same thing. You'd add up all those like numbers, then you divide them by the number of numbers you added. And feel free to use a calculator on this, although you really shouldn't need a calculator for most of them, especially for some of the practice problems. But feel free to check your work, okay? Don't feel like you can't. I just don't want you to rely entirely on the calculator, okay? So next thing, the median, right? So the median is different. According to the definitions, median is the number that's physically in the center of the data set, as long as the data set is ordered numerically, that's from least to greatest. Now I'm looking at the data set right here, right? The 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right here. The data set is in order from least to greatest, so that's good. That's a check. And the number that's physically in the middle, I circled it. It's 3 here, because to the left of 3, there's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 numbers to the left of 3, and there is 1, 2, 3 numbers to the right of 3. That puts 3 directly in the middle of the data set, and that is my median. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what if there isn't one single number in there, right? What do we do? Well, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do for that in the next slide. However, keep that question in mind, okay? Because this trick of finding a number that's physically in the middle only works if there's an odd number of numbers in the data set. In this case, there's 7 numbers in the data set, and 7 is an odd number. So it works. There's going to be a number in the middle, right? But it's going to become a problem if we have an even number of numbers. But I'll show you how to resolve that later. Okay, mode. According to the definitions, and if you're wondering where I got the definitions from, again, it's just these. Mode just says the number most repeated in the set. There's a problem. Every single number shows up exactly one time, which means no number is actually repeated. Which means in this case, I just wrote no mode. That we don't have a mode. Do not put that the mode is 0, because that would imply that there's multiple zeros. If there was a lot of zeros in here, right? Say if there was like 4 zeros, sure, the mode could be 0. But in this case, if there is no mode, we have to write the words no mode to let us know that there are no repeating numbers in this data set. Now that is very important. Mode is very easy, probably the easiest one to find, right? But it's very important to know no mode if there is no numbers that repeat. What happens if there's a tie? What happens if there's multiple numbers that repeat the same amount? Like let's say there's 2 3s and 2 4s. Well, which one's the mode? They're both the mode. If there's 2 3s and 2 4s, right? And everything else is just the numbers don't repeat after that, 3 and 4 would be considered the mode in that case. Okay. In this case, no such thing happened. There is no mode. Okay. Just keep that in mind. Okay. Range. All right. So we go back. Range is the largest number minus the smallest number in the data set. Okay. So in my data set, the largest number is 6. Smallest number, 0. Let's subtract. Always put the larger number first, because when you're subtracting, if you put the smaller number first, you end up with a 0, right? So you don't want that. You don't want a negative number in here. It's 6 minus 0 is equal to 6. My range, it's 6. That's it. So I don't have to do anything else. Remember, these things individually are not hard, but you are going to have to remember them by memory. So just make sure you're taking notes. Make sure you're putting whatever you need in order for you to remember. Okay, so the quartiles. All right, so let's look at the definition for quartiles because it's a little ambiguous. Quartiles are values that divide data set into 4 equal parts. Interesting. Why is it divided up into 4 equal parts when there's only quartile 1, 2, and 3? Shouldn't there be 4? Well, no, not necessarily. And we'll go into reason why in a bit. But in order for you to find the quartile, right, it's down here. These are my quartiles, and the way that I found them was I did this. I split up my data, right? If you notice, if you remember back from the mean, right? The mean was 3, and it was a number physically in the middle. Well, the mean, another word for the mean is quartile 2. Okay, quartile 2 is a number physically in the middle. They're the same thing. So if I found the median already, I already know what quartile 2 is. Quartile 2 is just 3, right? Check, right? And it's important for you to find quartile 2 first, because that determines where quartile 1 and quartile 3 is. Once you find the middle, like right here, I'm going to section off all the numbers to the left. I'm going to section off all the numbers to the right. So by section, I mean I'm referring to these brackets right here. Right? I put these brackets, I'm excluding quartile 2. It's not included in the data set anymore. And to the left, it's number 0, 1, and 2. I have to find the mean, the median of those 3 numbers only, and that will be my quartile 1. The number in the middle of those 3 numbers is 1. That's why I labeled it my quartile 1. I'm going to do the same thing, but to the right side. 4, 5, and 6. Right? The number in the middle is 5. But what if there's 2 numbers in the middle, you might ask? Again, same question as before. I'm going to show you how to handle that in the next slide. Okay, so quartile 1 is 1, quartile 2 is 3, quartile 3 is 5. Okay, so how does this help me? Oh, well, the last part, interquartile range. Interquartile range is another way of saying range. Range, we just have to subtract the largest number from the smallest number. Interquartile range, however, same concept. We take the biggest quartile, which is quartile 3, and we subtract the smallest quartile from it, quartile 1. In this case, we just found out that quartile 3 is 5, right? And quartile 1 is 1, which means that interquartile range is really easy. It's just, in this case, 5 minus 1 is equal to 4. My interquartile range is 4. Okay, now I want you to keep all these numbers intact. If you haven't written these things down, write them down so you have an example on what to do, right? If you need more time, go ahead and pause it here, but I'm going to move on. So if you're good, I'm going to move on. If not, pause it, write your notes, and move on when you're done. Okay, so I kept asking this question earlier, which was like, what happens if there's a even number of numbers in my data set, right? Now let's take a look at the data set that I have here. The data set is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. What number did I remove? Well, from the last data set, all I did was I took away 0. But in this case, I think you'll find that the value of the numbers is important, but 0 doesn't have a value. No, but it does take up a place. And because it's taking up a place in the data set, it dramatically affects all of these other values, right? Not to mention the way that we're going to find them. So if I excluded 0, for example, the mean, right? Well, the mean, I'm still going to find it the same way. I'm still going to add up all the numbers in the data set, but this time instead of there being 7 numbers, there is 6 numbers, which means that the denominator changes, right? So I end up with 21 divided by 6, not 7. So right away, my mean changes. My mean is no longer 3 like it was last time. By taking away the 0, my mean suddenly changed to 3.5, which is a little bit bigger, actually. So this is important, right? The median, however, right? Everything that we've been asking, right? So the problem here is there is no number in the middle. There's an even number of numbers, which means that there's 2 numbers fighting for the middle, the 3 and the 4. There's 2 numbers to the right of the 4, and there's 2 numbers to the left of the 3. And there's not enough numbers to like push them off or whatever, right? So what am I going to do with the 3 and 4? I need to find the number that's in the middle of 3 and 4. Well, there is no number in between 3 and 4. Okay, so let's make one. Let's take, when the 3 and the 4 are both in the middle, you take the average of 3 and 4. Remember, average is another way of saying mean. I need to take the mean of 3 and 4, which means I'm going to add 3 and 4 right here. And I'm going to divide them by the number of numbers that I added. 3 and 4 makes 2 numbers, right? So I'm going to divide them by 2. 7 divided by 2 is, hey, look at that, 3.5. Mean and median were the same in this problem, and they weren't the same in the last problem. That's not always going to be the case, just so you guys know. However, and this is something that you guys are going to be doing later on in a couple weeks, if the mean and the median are the same, there is a strong possibility that you are dealing with a symmetrical curve. Again, we will learn all about curves in the coming weeks. However, for now, just know that, yes, this is important. Okay, so moving on. Let's find the mode. Now, I took away a 0, but none of the numbers repeat. So again, the answer is no mode, right? The range, right? The range will change because last time the smallest number was 0, but this time the range is 6 minus 1 because the smallest number is now 1. So it changes slightly, right? The range is now 5. Okay, so what about quartiles 1, 2, and 3? What do we do? Okay, so pay attention to what I did up here. I wrote my data set, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I put a line in between 3 and 4. And then I wrote quartile 2 above it. I wrote Q2 right above it. Why? Because we know that the median is 3.5, and there is no 3.5 in my data set. It's the number physically in the middle of 3 and 4. So it doesn't exist, so it's not actually there, which is why I had to draw a line in between them. And I had to say that that's what it was. The 3.5 is here, right? That's my quartile 2. Because remember, I already figured it out by finding out the mean, right? I'm just visually representing it as all. Okay, now to the left, right? If you're wondering, okay, so the 3 and the 4, what's the deal? Do they belong to the mean, or do they belong to the to quartile 1 and quartile 3? The answer is they belong to quartile 1 and quartile 3 respectively, right? Because quartile 2 isn't actually there, it's kind of like in the middle, right? That means that these 3 numbers are the ones that have to account for quartile 1, right? So the middle of quartile 1 in this case would be 2. So that checks out. And the middle of quartile 3, it would be 5. So that checks out. If for whatever reason, right, there were numbers inside there that were even, right, you would have to take the mean. So let's say there was only 2 numbers. Let's say that there wasn't a 3 there, and there was just a 1 and a 2, right? You would take the average of 1 and 2, right? You would add 1 and 2 and then divide them by 2 and see what you would get. But since there was 3 numbers, there was an odd number of numbers to the left and an odd number of numbers to the right. We were able to determine the quartile 1 and quartile 3 without too much of an issue. All right. Just know that it may be required for you to do that again. Okay. And then now we're going to move on to the interquartile range, right? We're all the way over here. For the interquartile range, it's the same thing. Again, the largest quartile, which is quartile 3, minus the smallest quartile, which is quartile 1. We just established what those are. 5 minus 2, my interquartile range, 3. Now, if you guys notice something, if I took away 0, even though I'm technically taking nothing away in terms of value, it messed with all of my answers. If you look at the answers from the previous one, right? I got 3, 3, 6, 1, 3, 5, 4. And then when I removed the 0, everything changed. I have 3.5, 3.5, 5, 2, 3.55, and 3, right? All the measures of center change if you take away something from the data set. So you have to be very careful when doing that. All right, so just keep that in mind. Right, you may or may not have to do that in some of the practice problems. Okay, so now what do we do? Well, word problems. What you guys are gonna see is that the word problems, in order to earn an exemption from the final exam, Jason needs his mean test score to be 95 or greater. If Jason scored a 93, 99, 90, 93 on the first 4 exams, and he still needs to take one more exam, what is the lowest score he can get and still have a mean score of 95? So this is what we call just your standard word problem for mean, for how to maintain a mean at a certain level, or the average. So here, if you notice, the first thing we have to take note of, right, is the average that they want. Because if this student, Jason, has an average score of 95, he doesn't have to take his final, essentially. That's what it is. Like, this teacher made a deal with him. And he scored pretty well, right? But we need to find out what his current average is and then figure out what score he would need to get on his final so he can average out a 95, right? Because anything less than a 95, he has to take the final. So how do we set up our equation? Well, we put the average on the left side of the equation. If you notice right here, I have 95 is equal to, and then I have a fraction. The fraction should look familiar. On the side here, I wrote the steps down. I wrote, use the mean formula and use X to represent the last test. If you're freaking out about the word formula, don't. Remember, it's just this. It's just what we were doing here. We add up all the numbers in the data set and we divide them by the number of numbers in the data set. So in this case, our data set, right, is his scores on the first 4 exams. Plus, there's an extra number. So if we wanted to really show what our data set is, right, it's this: 93, 99, 90, 93, and there's an X because we don't know what the last score is. He needs to get a certain amount in order to maintain an average, right? This is what we're looking for. Okay, so if I were to continue, right, I just put everything in place. I put all 4 of those plus X because I'm adding them all. And I'm going to divide them by 5 because there's 5 numbers in that data set, including X. X is a number. All right, so what do we do next? Next, we add up 93, 99, 90, 93, right? We end up getting 375, right? We add everything up. We're simplifying everything. 375 plus X, because X can't add to 375. We don't know what X is yet. And we divide that by 5. So at this point, you might be wondering, okay, I don't know what to do. Like, we can't add 375. What do we do? Well, if you notice, I have this dot here. This dot means multiplication. In order for me to get rid of a fraction like this, I need to get rid of that 5. Because remember, I'm trying to get X to be by itself, which means I have to move 375 over to the left side. And I need to move that 5 over to the left side. But I can't just do it in any way. I have to do what's called inverse operations. and I have to do the opposite of what it's currently doing. Now, a fraction like this, when everything is being divided by 5, it's division, which means to get rid of a divided by 5, I have to multiply by 5, which explains the dot, the 5 over 1. Why 5 over 1? Because when we're multiplying fractions, if you want to multiply by a whole number like 5, you have to put 5 over 1. That way the 5 multiplies by the numerator, and then if you have the same number on top and on the bottom, they cancel out. These 5s cancel out. But what you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side. If I multiply this whole thing by 5, I have to multiply a 95 by 5 as well. So 95 times 5 ends up being something about 475 is equal to 375 plus x. Remember, the 5 didn't affect the x. It didn't affect the 375, so I just dropped those. Now, the 375, I have to get rid of it. It's positive, which means it's adding. So all I have to do is subtract 375 from both sides. When I subtract 375 from 475, I end up getting 100. That is my final answer. Jason needs a perfect score on his last test to maintain an average of 95. So, is it possible for Jason to score high enough so that he doesn't have to take his final? Yes. What score does he have to get? He has to get a perfect score, which is pretty hard. But that is how you can figure out what number you need in order to maintain an average. And these are the kind of word problems you should look out for. Okay. So with that said, I want to go ahead and do this. This is my email for all you guys, right? If you're having trouble for whatever reason, and the teacher that you're currently with is also having trouble helping you out, maybe there's an issue with the class, maybe you're unsure how to upload something, or maybe you uploaded something, you want to check if I got it, you can always send me an email to this email and I'll do my best to reply to you. Also, if you're like, I need additional tutoring, I need a Zoom lesson or something because I'm not at your school site, then we can always set up some kind of Zoom appointment using this email. Use this email, just say, hi, my name is, I'm from whatever site, and I need help with this. Can we talk over Zoom? And then I can help you with problems one-on-one. Okay. There is that. Good luck, guys. Make sure to do all the work that is posted on Google Classroom. Make sure to check the due dates. And I think that's it.